Birthdays used to mean something in this house. Balloons tied to chair legs, my boys running around with paper hats too big for their heads, my late husband smiling as he pretended to blow out candles I'd already extinguished. There was laughter, noise, a home so full of life it felt too small to contain all the love inside it. But life is a strange storyteller. The same house that once echoed with celebrations now feels like a hollow shell, quiet, gray, and heavy with memories no one bothers to open anymore. This morning, when I woke up, sunlight leaked weakly through the curtains. Cold. Lifeless. And it hit me. It was my birthday. 74 years on this earth. And not a soul stirred. I sat at the edge of my bed for a long time, listening to the clock ticking on the wall, steady, uncaring, almost mocking. Tick. My life. Talk. My loneliness. I told myself maybe they were planning something. Maybe my son would walk through the door with that customer service smile he's mastered, warm on the outside, tired and distant beneath it. Maybe my daughter-in-law would pretend she remembered. Maybe my grandchildren would call. I brewed my morning coffee with the same stained kettle I've had for years. Its whistle cut through the silence in a way that felt cruelly loud. The mud trembled slightly in my hands, not from age, but from the ache of knowing no one had called, texted, or knocked. Not even a good morning. 74 years, and I had become invisible. I carried my coffee to the living room and sat in my old armchair, the one with the faded floral print. Outside, the neighborhood carried on, dogs barking, cars starting, children rushing to school with backpacks bouncing behind them. The world moved. Everyone moved. Except the people who used to move towards me. Around noon, loneliness becomes heavier. It sits beside you, steals your breath, presses against your ribs. I stared at the quiet hallway where family photos hung in crooked frames. I used to straighten them every morning. Today, I didn't move. Why would I? No one cared enough to notice their crooked smiles or missing frames. The cruelest part wasn't that they forgot. It was that I expected them to. I spent the afternoon knitting a scarf no one asked for and would probably throw into a donation box someday. My hands moved automatically, years of habit, but my mind wandered through memories that cut deeper than I expected. I remembered the students I taught years ago, kids who entered my classroom shy, wounded, unseen. I used to tell them. Even the smallest person can change the world if someone believes in them. Funny how time turns teachers into ghosts. You give the world everything you have, and then the world walks past you like you were never there. The sun began to set, bleeding orange and red through the windows like a slow-burning fire. The house darkened around me, and I didn't bother turning on the lights. What was the point? Dinner time came. I warmed leftover soup that tasted like cardboard and grief. I ate alone at the small kitchen table where my family once squeezed in shoulder to shoulder. No candles. No cake. No laughter. Just the hum of the refrigerator, the clink of my spoon, and the ache of being forgotten by the people I once carried in my arms. After cleaning up, I sat back in the living room, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. My bones felt cold. My heart felt colder. And then, just when I accepted that the day would end in silence, 3 soft knocks echoed through the house. Not hesitant. Not confused. Purposeful. Warm. I frowned, confused. No one visits me at this hour. The knocks came again. I slowly pushed myself out of the chair, my knees cracking, and approached the door. My hand hovered over the doorknob as a strange mix of fear and hope twisted in my chest. When I finally opened it, I froze. There on my porch stood 3 adults, faces I hadn't seen in decades, holding flowers, tearful smiles, and something I didn't expect to see anymore. Love. And before I could speak, the one in the front whispered, "Mrs. Harlow, we never forgot you." And in that moment, 3 decades of silence shattered. Because the students I thought life had stolen from me were standing right at my door. For a long moment, I didn't move. I couldn't. It felt like I had opened the door to a memory rather than a moment in real time. The porch light flickered above us, casting a soft glow on their faces, older now, lined with adulthood, but unmistakably familiar. My breath caught in my throat. The man in the middle, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that once belonged to a frightened little boy, stepped forward. "Mrs. Harlow," he said again, voice trembling, "we've been looking for you." I blinked, unsure if this was some dream my lonely mind had conjured. "Looking for me?" I whispered. The woman on the left nodded, clutching a small bouquet of daisies, my favorite. "You were the only teacher who ever believed in us," she said, her voice cracking. "We couldn't let your birthday pass like this." My birthday. The word stung and soothed at the same time. I stepped back, gesturing them inside with shaking hands. Come in, come in. It's cold out." They entered slowly, reverently, as if stepping into a sacred place. I felt strangely embarrassed by my small, dimly lit living room, the old armchair, the worn carpet, the thrift store lamp. But they didn't seem to notice. It was the tall man who spoke first once we were all seated. "Do you remember me?" he asked gently. I looked at him, really looked, and my heart stumbled. "Michael Ramirez," I whispered. "Seat by the window. Third row. You used to draw comic strips in the margins of your worksheets." His eyes glistened. "You remember." "Of course I remember," I said, surprised he ever doubted it. "You had a laugh that shook the whole class." He let out a shaky laugh, older now, weighted, but still his. The woman with the daisies leaned forward. "And me?" I studied her, noting the soft curls, the nervous hands, the eyes that held too much sadness for someone so young. "Emily Carter," I said softly. "You always wrote poems on the back of your tests. Sad ones." She covered her mouth as tears slipped down her cheeks. "I can't believe you still know." The third one, a man with a kind smile and tired eyes, swallowed. "And me, Mrs. Harlow?" I didn't even need a second glance. "Thomas Green. You sat in the front because you hated your glasses fogging up near the window." He broke, his shoulders shaking as he tried to hide his tears. I felt my own throat tighten. How could I ever forget any of you? For a moment, the room filled with quiet emotion, heavy and warm. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but overflowing. Emily placed the daisies in my hands, her voice trembling. "You were the first adult who ever told me my words mattered. I became a writer because of you." Michael cleared his throat. "You helped me when the school wanted to suspend me for fighting, even though I was defending myself. You saved my education." Thomas reached into his coat pocket and gently placed something on the table, a crumpled, faded piece of paper. I gasped. It was a drawing. One I had kept on my classroom wall for years, a picture of our class with little cartoon versions of me and the kids. The edges were frayed, the colors faded, but the memory was unmistakable. "You kept this?" I whispered. "You hung it on the board," Thomas said. "And you told me it was a reminder of how creativity keeps the world alive." I never forgot. My heart felt too full for my small chest. I had spent the whole day believing I was forgotten, invisible, unimportant, unnecessary. But sitting here, surrounded by 3 grown adults who had driven hours to find me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Seen. Remembered. Valued. Emily wiped her tears and took a shaky breath. "We're here because we heard things about your son. About how he doesn't visit. How you've been spending your birthdays alone." I stiffened. Michael's jaw clenched. Thomas's eyes darkened. Emily continued softly, "We couldn't let today be another year you sat alone in the dark." She reached out, taking my hand. "Not after what you did for us." The room spun, not with fear, but with emotions I had long buried. Love. Recognition. Gratitude. And then Michael said something that made my heartbeat stop. "Mrs. Harlow, we want to take you somewhere." I looked up, confused. "Somewhere?" Thomas nodded. It's important. And, it's about you. Before I could ask another question, Michael added quietly. It's something your own family should have done years ago. And as they stood up, nervous, hopeful, I realized this night was about to reveal a truth I never saw coming, one that would change everything I thought I knew about my loneliness. For a moment, I just stared at them. 3 former students, now adults with lives, responsibilities, and burdens of their own, were looking at me like they were carrying a secret. A secret about me. Emily squeezed my hand gently, her eyes shining with something between sadness and determination. Please come with us, Mrs. Harlow, she said. Just trust us. And maybe I should have questioned it. Maybe I should have been cautious. A 74-year-old woman climbing into a stranger's car, even if those strangers were once children who trusted me with their dreams. But the truth is, the house behind me was colder than the night outside. So I grabbed my thin coat from the hook near the door and stepped out into the dark with them. Michael opened the back door of his car like he used to hold the door for other kids in the school hallway, gentle, protective, careful. Watch your step, he said softly. When I sat down, a faint scent of pine filled the car. The heater hummed to life, warming my stiff fingers. What is this about? I asked as we pulled away from the curb. The 3 exchanged glances. Silent ones. Loaded ones. Thomas was the first to answer. We found something, he said quietly. Something you should have been told a long time ago. My heart tightened. Told about what? Emily turned around from the front seat, her eyes full of sympathy. Mrs. Harlow, do you know how many of your students came back years later, looking for you? I frowned. No. No one ever told me. Michael's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Your son didn't tell you. I blinked, stunned. What do you mean? Thomas leaned forward, elbows on his knees. There were letters. Cards. Visits. Students who wanted to see you, years after high school. They came to your old address, but your son always sent them away. Sent them away? I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. He said you weren't available, Emily added softly. Or that you moved. Or that you didn't want visitors. My chest burned. He said that? They nodded. Michael swallowed hard. He even told a few of us that you didn't want anything to do with your former students. That you were tired of the past. A trembling breath escaped my lips. I never said that. Never. Emily looked at me with so much sadness it almost hurt to see it. We know, she whispered. We realized it wasn't you. Someone didn't want people coming into your life. My eyes blurred with tears. But why? Why would my own son block people from seeing me? Why would he hide cards, letters, visits, moments that could have warmed the lonely winters of my old age? My voice shook. What else did he hide from me? Michael inhaled deeply. That's what we're going to show you. The car turned off the main road and onto a long, winding one surrounded by tall oaks. Their branches arched overhead like cathedral pillars, guiding us through the night. Finally, we stopped in front of a small brick building. Warm lights glowed from inside. A few people milled around, talking quietly, holding candles. I recognized none of them, yet something about the place felt familiar. Emily opened my door gently. Let's go in. My legs trembled as I stepped out. The cold air nipped at my cheeks, but my heart thudded hot and heavy in my chest. What is this place? I whispered. Thomas moved beside me, placing a steadying hand on my elbow. This, he said softly, is where we've been meeting every year. I looked at him, confused. Meeting for what? Michael stepped in front of me, his voice low, emotional. For you, Mrs. Harlow. For your birthday. For the woman who saved us. Emily wiped a tear. This is our tradition. We gather every year to honor the teacher who changed our lives, even though you never showed up. My breath caught. And do you know why you never came? Thomas said quietly. I shook my head, unable to speak. He swallowed. Because your son told us you didn't want us anymore. My knees buckled. Emily caught my hands. Tonight, she whispered, we're here to give you back what he took. I watched strangers, no, former students, turn toward me with soft smiles and flickering candles. They had waited for me. 4 years. Believing I didn't want them, because someone else decided I didn't deserve them. And as I stepped forward, the candles lighting my path, I realized this night was unraveling something far deeper than a forgotten birthday. Because when I walked through that door, I saw something that proved my loneliness wasn't an accident at all, it was engineered. When I stepped through the doorway, the warm light inside wrapped around me like a memory I didn't know I still needed. The room was filled with soft chatter, candlelight flickering against old brick walls, and the faint smell of vanilla from a candle burning in the corner. But the real shock was the faces. Dozens of them. Not strangers. Former students. Adults now, parents, workers, dreamers, survivors, each of them staring at me with an expression I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. Love. Emily whispered, they've been waiting for you. And just like that, every wall I'd built around my aging, lonely heart cracked. A young woman with bright eyes stepped forward first, smiling nervously. Mrs. Harlow? I don't know if you remember me. My breath caught. Claire Whitmore, I whispered. Your mother used to braid your hair before school. You always carried a notebook with stars on it. She choked out a tearful laugh. You remember. A man with a shaved head approached next, holding a photograph to his chest. Mrs. Harlow. I wanted to show you this. He handed me the worn picture. You told me once that my handwriting was strong and confident. No one had ever told me anything about myself that sounded good. That day changed my life. I blinked back tears, staring at the child he once was, bright-eyed, hopeful, despite everything he faced. I became a nurse, he added softly. Because you told me I could help people. My throat tightened. Person after person came forward, with stories, memories, pieces of their lives I unknowingly helped shape. A woman wrapped me in a warm hug. You helped me leave an abusive home. A man quietly said, you were the first adult who ever listened. A shy voice whispered, you taught me what kindness sounds like. Every sentence felt like a life returned to me, like pieces of myself I didn't know were missing had been handed back. But with every moment of joy, another emotion grew in the background. A darker one. A heavier one. Why didn't I know any of this? Why did I spend years believing I'd made no lasting impact, that no one cared, that I was forgotten? The answer circled my mind like a storm. My son. My own flesh and blood. Emily must have seen the shift in my face, because she gently guided me to a small table near the back of the room. A stack of envelopes sat there, different sizes, colors, worn edges. What is this? I whispered. Thomas inhaled sharply. These are the letters we sent you. Birthday cards. Thank you notes. Updates. Invitations. My heart lurched. I reached out with trembling hands and picked up the top envelope. My name was written in a child's handwriting, slanted, uneven, hopeful. Mrs. Harlow, please come to my graduation. You promised. My vision blurred. Another envelope. Then another. One from Michael. One from Emily. One from students I hadn't seen in 30 years. Where did you find these? I asked, my voice thin. Emily hesitated, swallowing hard. In your old garage. In a box marked donation. A cold wave washed down my spine. They were never opened, Thomas said quietly. All of them were sealed. My knees weakened. He took them from me, I whispered, the words tasting like betrayal. My own son took them from me. Emily placed a hand on my shoulder. We aren't here to hurt you. We're here to give you back what was yours. I stared at the pile of envelopes, years of love, gratitude, connection, that never reached me. The students surrounding us bowed their heads, respecting the silence that followed. My chest tightened. Not just with sadness, but with something sharper. Anger. Betrayal. Realization. My son had let me believe I was alone. My son had allowed me to sit in silence, thinking no one cared. My son had taken away the moments that could have brightened my darkest days. I closed my eyes, feeling tears spill freely. He robbed me, I whispered. He stole my years. But before the pain could drown me, a small hand slipped into mine. A child. No older than 8. She looked up at me with innocent eyes and said, "My mom said you saved her life. So today, we wanted to save yours." And just as I felt my strength return, Michael cleared his throat, holding something in his hands that made the entire room go silent. Something my son never wanted me to see. Michael stood there gripping something, an old, yellowed envelope, so tightly his knuckles had turned white. The room quieted. The air shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence as every student slowly turned toward us. He took a step closer, his voice low and rough. "Mrs. Harlow. I wasn't sure if I should show you this tonight. But it belongs to you." My breath stilled. He handed me the envelope. It was heavier than it looked. Not physically, but emotionally, like it carried years, maybe decades, of a truth I wasn't prepared for. On the front, in handwriting I recognized instantly, was a name I had avoided saying aloud for a long time. David Harlow. My husband. My knees trembled. I sank into a nearby chair as Emily placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. "He wrote this," Michael whispered. "Before he passed." My heart squeezed painfully. "But I never received a letter from him." Michael nodded. "We know." Thomas exhaled slowly, his voice shaking with anger he tried to hide. "Your son had it. We found it in a plastic bin in the attic of your old house. Buried under boxes of holiday decorations." The room felt suddenly small. As if every breath of air had been taken hostage by the truth. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a folded letter, his handwriting shaky but unmistakable. A handwriting I used to tease him about because he wrote like he was still learning to hold a pen. I unfolded it. And then I saw the first lines. "My love, if you're reading this, then I didn't get the chance to say goodbye in person. And there is something you need to know." My eyes blurred instantly. He continued. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Not the house, not the job, not the life we built, you. You saved me long before I ever fell sick." The words cut deep, sweetly and painfully all at once. I pressed a shaking hand to my mouth as I read on. "I worry about you when I'm gone. You give the world everything you have, but you take so little for yourself. And I'm afraid our son doesn't understand your heart the way he should." My stomach twisted. Emily leaned closer as I continued. "I need you to remember something, you're not a burden. You're not forgotten. You are loved, more than you'll ever realize." The paper trembled in my hands. Loved. He had loved me, deeply, quietly, fiercely. The kind of love that anchors a lifetime. But the next part was what shattered something inside me. "I asked him to give this to you when the time was right. But I fear he may choose not to. I fear resentment more than illness. And resentment lives in him deeper than I ever wanted to admit." A chill crawled down my spine. My husband had known. He had known our son was drifting into bitterness, selfishness, control. He had known my future loneliness wouldn't come from accident, but from abandonment. I choked on a sob. The room blurred as years of silence, confusion, and quiet suffering snapped sharply into place. My son hadn't forgotten my birthday out of carelessness. He hadn't kept my students' letters out of oversight. He had isolated me. Loneliness wasn't an accident. It had been constructed. By my own child. Emily wiped her cheeks as Thomas knelt in front of me. You didn't deserve any of this, he whispered. You gave us more love than your own son ever gave you. Michael placed a hand on my shoulder. We're your family now, Mrs. Harlow. Their warmth, their presence, their sincerity filled corners of my heart that had long grown cold. But the letter wasn't finished. My husband's final words. Those pierced deeper than any wound. If he ever hides this from you, promise me one thing. Don't let it steal your joy. You have changed more lives than you realize. And the world needs your light, even when the people closest to you refuse to see it. I pressed the letter against my chest, the tears unstoppable. I could feel him, his love, his voice, his presence, connecting across time, telling me. You are not forgotten. You never were. But then the heaviness returned. Because behind my husband's love was a truth I could no longer ignore. My own son had silenced the world from reaching me. And for the first time in years, anger didn't frighten me. It fueled me. And as I rose from my chair, letter trembling in my hand, I made a promise. I was going to confront the one person who stole my life from me. No matter the cost. I didn't plan to confront him that night. But grief has a strange way of sharpening courage. And betrayal, well, betrayal lights a fire even old bones can't ignore. I tucked my husband's letter carefully into my coat pocket. My hands were still trembling, but not from weakness anymore. From resolve. Emily sensed it first. Mrs. Harlow, are you sure? She whispered. I nodded slowly. I've stayed silent long enough. He took years from me. He took all of you from me. I looked around the room, at every face glowing in candlelight. And I won't let him take anything else. Michael exchanged a glance with Thomas. We'll take you. And so we left the warm circle of light, stepping into the cold night air. The drive to my son's house felt longer than ever before. Maybe because I knew this time, the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with all the things I had swallowed over the years. The forgotten birthdays. The unanswered calls. The loneliness disguised as busy schedules. The stolen letters. The stolen love. Thomas parked across the street from the house I once considered home. The porch light was off. The curtains drawn. A house full of life, just without me. I stepped out, leaning slightly on Michael's arm. My heart thundered, but my mind was clear. I knocked on the door. It took a minute before it opened. My son, Daniel, appeared in the doorway, hair messy, eyes tired, annoyance already forming on his face. Mom? What are you doing here at this hour? I didn't speak at first. I just reached into my coat pocket and handed him the letter. He frowned. What's this? Read it. I watched his eyes dart across the page, slowly at first, then faster. His jaw tightened. His throat bobbed. Color drained from his cheeks. By the time he reached the final lines, his hands were shaking. He looked up at me, but not with guilt, not yet. With frustration. Where did you get this? It wasn't meant to. It was meant for me, I said, my voice steady. Dad wrote it for me. He trusted you to deliver it. He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. And the cards? The letters from my students? The visits I never knew about? His eyes flickered with something ugly, shame dressed as defensiveness. They didn't need to see you, he snapped. You didn't need all that. You had me. I stared at him, stunned. I had you. Daniel, I spent birthdays alone. Nights alone. Years alone, because you decided people shouldn't care about me. You're exaggerating, he muttered. You're old, Mom. I was protecting you. Protecting me? My voice cracked. Or protecting your control? Your pride? Your resentment? His mouth tightened. The truth was written all over his face. He didn't deny it. Not once. I didn't want strangers filling your head, he said quietly. I didn't want them reminding you of things I couldn't give you. I felt my heart break in a way that wasn't painful anymore, just clean. Clear. Daniel, I whispered, love is not a competition. And it's not a cage. He looked away. I needed you, I said. Not to protect me. To see me. He said nothing. Behind me, Michael took a protective step closer. Emily crossed her arms. Thomas stood like a pillar. My son glanced at them, then at me, his voice small. So what now? I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I said, I'm choosing myself. His eyes widened. Mom, come inside. We can talk. No, I said gently but firmly. I'm going back with them. With them? Your students? You barely even. I remember them, I said. And they remembered me. When you didn't. He had no response for that. I stepped back toward the car, the night cold but my soul warm. Mom, he whispered, voice cracking. I stopped, turning just once. You had years to show me love, Daniel. But you chose control instead. His face crumpled. But I had already made my choice. I walked back toward the three people who had come for me. Who had searched for me. Who brought light back into a life my own son had dimmed. Michael opened the car door gently. Ready to go home, Mrs. Harlow? I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. I am home. As we drove off, I gazed at the fading house behind us. Not with sorrow, but with closure. My birthday hadn't been forgotten. My life hadn't been forgotten. I had been remembered by the people I truly touched. And in the end, that was the family I chose. In the end, she didn't just rediscover her past, she reclaimed her worth, her voice, and the love that was stolen from her. Because sometimes, the people we teach end up teaching us what family truly is. If this story touched your heart, hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss another emotional journey from Granny's Untold Stories. And if you believe no one should ever feel forgotten, share this video, you never know who needs this reminder today.